Greenland.
Yes.
Look, your GDP is $3.3 billion.
Yes, you've
right?
made that point 3 times. The minister actually told you the people of Greenland don't want to be part of...
Yeah, and you're not listening because clearly they're not doing anything for the people of Greenland.
Sorry.
And here you have the President of the United States that's saying, look, we're here. We want to make it great again.
Right. Nation is a profound mistake. I'll just read you one quote. I've got others, but this is Senator Tom Tillis. Actively pushing or coercive action to seize territory of an ally is beyond stupid.
This clip comes from BBC Newsnight, where Victoria Derbyshire challenges Republican Congressman Andy Ogles over his support for Donald Trump's push to bring Greenland under U.S. control, including threats of tariffs against allies. Joining the discussion is Greenland's Minister of Industry and Natural Resources, Naja Nathanielsen, who directly pushes back on the claim that Greenlanders want to become American, citing polling, democratic consent, and sovereignty. As the exchange unfolds, Derbyshire repeatedly fact-checks Ogles, presses him on public opinion in Greenland, and exposes the gap between MAGA rhetoric and the reality on the ground, turning the interview into an uncomfortable but revealing moment about power, alliances, and democratic choice.
How are you and fellow Greenlanders feeling tonight?
Well, we are bewildered and have been so since New Year's Eve, I would say. This is an entirely new situation where an ally is threatening to annex or even occupy us.
Are people preparing for some kind of military invasion in practical terms?
Well, people are scared and people are preparing themselves in the ways they can.
Like what?
But of course, we're not aiming at a military invasion.
No, you're hoping that won't happen, of course. But are people stocking up on food, for example?
Well, I've been hearing that some of the stores have been running out of some materials and other, but I think right now we're just trying to make sense of the news of the world and figuring out what is it that the states want with us. We need some clarity in these coming days, and we need to deepen the dialogue that we have already started.
Congressman, you've just heard the minister. People there are scared and potentially preparing for your democratic country to take their democratic country by military force, a NATO ally, a sovereign country. That's outrageous, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think the idea that the United States would take Greenland by force is absolutely absurd, and quite frankly, it's a talking point from globalists who are trying to sound an alarm. Let's be honest, the GDP of Greenland is roughly $3.3 billion.
Sure, and if I may, when Donald Trump...
I'll finish, $3.3 billion is, and yet, China has invested $450 billion into the Arctic Sea in just a 5-year period from 2012 to 2017. So if you're in Greenland and you are alarmed, it should be the buildup of resources by China in the region. And you can look at other countries that they've come into, whether it's the Belt and Road Initiative, or if you look at, their Thailand, Taiwan, Hong Kong, etc. So look, at the end of the day, the United States of America protects the Western Hemisphere to include Greenland, and we are looking to have a productive dialogue. End of story.
Donald Trump has had multiple... Of course, sorry, Minister, do come back. Do talk to our congressman.
Yeah, I just want to say that in Greenland we do understand that we are a part of the American national security sphere. We get this. What I want to know is, by your standards, what is your plan and your proposal? Leave the people of Greenland. And we do not want to be Americans, and we have been quite clear about that. We do want collaboration and deepen our partnership and relationship. But I just must ask you, what value do you put on our culture and our right to decide what happens with us in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a valid question. I think as we look, we're entering into a new era. When you look how, open the Arctic Sea is, the Greenland Sea there, the Arctic Ocean, Greenland Sea. And so you look at Russia has, 8 nuclear icebreakers deployed. China has 5. Denmark can't keep pace with that. And so as you have increasing resources by adversaries of the West, and that would include Greenland, you're going to need this relationship with the United States of America. So whether it's the Golden Dome, whether it's trade, and look, there's trillions of dollars in resources there in Greenland for the Greenlanders, for the people. Denmark has not done anything, quite frankly, to capitalize on that for your people, for your country. The United States can certainly do that, and it's a win-win for the Greenlanders.
And do you want to answer the minister's question, which is what value do you put on what the people of Greenland want?
Absolutely. I think if you had a referendum today to the folks of Greenland, they would overwhelmingly want independence from Denmark, and they would overwhelmingly want a closer relationship with the United States of America.
I need to rebuke that. There was a survey last year that showed overwhelming solidarity within the kingdom. Of course, we want more self-determination, but we want it within the realm of the Kingdom of Denmark, and I think that should be respected. We have been working towards more autonomy for 300 years with Denmark, and I think we're making progress in many ways. But this is a decision for Greenland and Denmark, a conversation we need to have amongst us. And I think that should be respected. I think the people of Greenland has clearly stated they do not want to be Americans. They want collaboration. And your point about the need to ramp up monitoring and presence in the Arctic, we are in agreement with this. This is one of the reasons why NATO was formed. It was to pull together the forces of many countries and the capacities and competences. So I think that there's ample opportunities to find solutions within existing frameworks, without harming my culture or my country.
Well, you know, in your own words, you've been wanting independence from Denmark for 300 years. How's that working out for you? It's not. And now we have a shift in global initiatives and powers in the region. You can't do anything to defend yourself. Denmark cannot do anything to defend you. It's up to the United States of America. End of story. And unless you're capable, which you are not, of doing that, again, let me go back to the data. 3.3 billion is your GDP. China has already invested over $500 billion into the region, and that number is only growing day by day, and we see these continued incursions. And look, if there's going to be an attack on the Western Hemisphere, it's going to be from that sphere, and the United States of America, quite frankly, is going to have to make, and I think this is going to be a mutually beneficial relationship, but it's going to have to become a protectorate of the United States. And quite frankly, I think the people of Alberta would agree with that sentiment, that they would prefer not to be a part of Canada and be a part of the United States, because we are winning day in and day out, and the idea of NATO being able to defend anyone, anywhere, is nonsense without the United States of America. They can't defend their own cities from the current invasion that's taking place from West Africa. They certainly can't do it from Russia or China.
We have we'll try and come back to our Republican congressman. We have a guest here who is laughing at that here in the studio. Sam Kiley, why did you laugh?
Well, because it's absolutely mad to suggest that European nations are being invaded by West Africa. I mean, it just conjured up the kind of really bizarre images in my own mind, having spent quite a lot of my time in my life in West Africa. But equally, what we're hearing there from the congressman are these mendacious tropes, absolute nonsense of China hasn't invested $500 billion in Greenland. They've spent possibly who knows how much money building out their defensive systems or offensive systems. The Western Hemisphere is under attack right now by Russia, which the United States has withdrawn support from the democratic country that is defending against Russia, Ukraine, leaving that to the Europeans, and weakening NATO at the point at which NATO is most vulnerable. The Western Hemisphere is most vulnerable. That's why I was laughing.
Congressman, I wonder what your response is to Republicans who warn that the threat of tariffs that Donald Trump has been making on countries who don't support the USA taking over another sovereign nation is a profound mistake. I'll just read you one quote. I've got others, but this is Senator Tom Tillis. Actively pushing or coercive action to seize territory of an ally is beyond stupid.
Well, you know, I can't speak for the senator, but what I can tell you is when you look at the president, he is determined to bring to whom, ma'am? I'm sorry.
You can respond to what Tom Tillis has said. It's beyond stupid.
Well, I find myself not agreeing with the senator. At the end of the day, you have increased Russian and Chinese incursions into the Arctic Sea. What's Tom Tillis going to do about that? Nothing. But President Trump, being the leader of the free world, is pushing back against these constant incursions by our enemies. Look, when you look at the existential threat to Europe, to the United States of America, it is China and to a lesser extent Russia. And so it's going to have to be a increased, again, quite frankly, relationship. I think the Greenlanders, ultimately, if they were given the opportunity for a referendum, which, quite frankly, the leadership within Greenland doesn't want, Denmark doesn't want to have happen, rather, is they would want to be with the United States of America. Look, there's prosperity on the horizon.
Sorry,
you have trillions of dollars that can be there for the Greenlanders. And Denmark has done nothing to capitalize on that for the people of Greenland.
Yes.
Look, your GDP is $3.3 billion.
Yes, you've
right?
made that point 3 times. The minister actually told you the people of Greenland don't want to be part of...
Yeah, and you're not listening because clearly they're not doing anything for the people of Greenland.
Sorry.
And here you have the President of the United States that's saying, look, we're here. We want to make it great again.
Right. You saw the protests of the people in Greenland and Denmark saying we're not for sale. A recent poll of Greenlanders suggested only 6% of Greenlanders want their country to become part of the US. 85% are against that. You've got to listen to those people. You're a democratic country. They're a democratic country. They're allies in NATO.
Yeah, and again, I've had the opportunity, the privilege to host individuals, leaders from the community, from Greenland, in my office here in the States. They distinctly, harshly disagree with your sentiment, but that's to be expected.
It's not my sentiment.
The globalists do not want to see.
Forgive me, it's not my
NATO
sentiment.
being, essentially put in its place. And again, what you're seeing is the United States is leading from a position of strength.
Okay.
And Denmark and NATO is having trouble reconciling with that because at the end of the day, it's the United States that are going to keep Russia and China at bay. Yeah.
President Trump appears to be good friends with President Putin. Let me bring in our colleagues here in the studio. Thank you for the moment, Congressman. Nick, I want you to talk through apologies for the technical problems, and Andy Ogles, Republican Congressman, is also still with us. Thank you for your patience too. I wonder if I could ask you, Minister, is Denmark doing enough? Is NATO doing enough to protect Greenland?
Well, we've been asking for years that we are perfectly inviting NATO countries and Denmark to ramp up the monitoring of the Arctic. We see a lot of purpose in that, not only for military purposes, but also dual use. So for us, this would be very acceptable, and we think it makes a lot of sense. So I think we can figure something out together, and I still believe in the path of dialogue. What we don't appreciate is the idea of being sold and bought like a commodity. But we do want to engage in the discussions about more national security for the US, which we appreciate and understand.
But it sounds like you've been asking
mineral resources to be harvested.
Well, that's interesting because you are the Minister for Natural Resources. How much do you think that is relevant to the US leader?
Well, I think there's more than one narrative at play, and I think there's more than one truth. And I think we all need to find our way in that complexity. I don't think there's a single answer to this question. I think it can have to do with national security, of course, with mineral access, and maybe also with expansionism. Do
you accept that, Congressman Ogles? It's to do with US expansionism?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you have to look at the state of play on the global map today, that it's not NATO that's investing in the Arctic Ocean or the Greenland Sea or in the territory that is Greenland, but it's China and Russia. And unfortunately, we cannot sit idly by and allow that to happen. So as far as Greenland goes, NATO is defunct. It has not had a role. The handful of troops that they're sending there, it's symbolic, and I totally understand why Macron or some of the other leaders were going to want to stand up at Davos and come across as strong in their own roles. I get that and understand that. But at the end of the day, when you look at global peace, the world looks to the United States of America. And what I'm telling you, what the president is telling you, is that Greenland is an integral part of our security and global security, and the time for talk is over. We have to move forward. The clock is ticking. We continue to see China. We continue to see Russia advancing and investing in the region when no one else is, and no one but the United States has the capability or the resources to push back and fight this fight.
And final word to you, Minister, in response to the Congressman, and also your message to Donald Trump, who will be addressing Davos tomorrow.
Well, one thing I find baffling is I hear this about the need to control Greenland and own Greenland in terms of making sure that the U.S. is safe and sound. I just don't know how my freedom plays into all of this and how the freedom of my people plays into all of this. I think if you talk about freedom and security, that should extend to us as well.
What really comes through across all of these exchanges is just how detached some of these MAGA talking points are from reality. Whether it's dismissing what the people of Greenland are actually saying, brushing off polling, or leaning into this idea that the U.S. gets to decide what happens to smaller allied nations simply because it's powerful. Again and again, the facts cut straight through the rhetoric, and you can see the discomfort set in when those facts are put on the table, especially when democratic consent, sovereignty, and basic respect for allies are raised because there's no serious answer to them, just deflection, repetition, and slogans. And that's why moments like this matter, when journalists actually press back instead of letting nonsense slide. So as always, I want to hear your thoughts. Whether you agree or disagree, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. It really helps with the algorithm. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and check out the next one.